What's up, Zaher? This is Al, your favorite sexy powerlifting coach. Now, at least that's what I claim to be, a powerlifting coach. Sexy, that's given, that's definitely for sure. But let's go ahead and talk about your squat, bench, deadlift. So first of all, I appreciate you choosing me as your coach. I definitely, I definitely appreciate the support, and also that, I value your opinion, and also I value that you value my opinion. So let's go talk about the squat, bench, deadlift. So your bench press or your squat, you can see here, is on the left hand side. Your bench press is on the right hand side, and then eventually we'll go ahead and talk about your deadlift. So let's talk about your squat. So first thing I notice is you're walking out like crazy, but that's just because of your crappy half racks that you guys got in like a 24-hour gym. Let's go ahead and look at that walkout. Actually, you're still squatting within the rack, and that is actually the rack might not be good for you, just because look how close you are about to hit. If we were actually to hit true depth, you would actually touch. So I wouldn't be mad that you have to walk out this all the way back, because ideally you want to take like 2 steps and then adjust from there. So you're wasting all that energy, because once weight starts getting a little bit heavier, you're gonna waste all that energy just walking. Like once it hits like 500 plus pounds, it feels like forever walking it back, and it feels like you're just gonna snap your shit up. But I would rather have you walk out tons of crazy amount of steps rather than you half squat. So speaking of half squat, your squat, it's not if you plan on competing, and I'm guessing you are, because I think you said that was one of your goals, is to compete. Your hip crease has to be, of course, below the top of your knee, and in this case this doesn't look like that is depth. So if you can squat in a powerlifting rack, that would be better, just like a squat rack. I know you have your bros with you, so you're just gonna have to tell them, like, hey guys, let's go to the freaking squat rack, because this little half rack ain't doing shit. So first thing I notice off the bat is your crazy knee cave. Now right there, you see all that? That's like let's go ahead and circle this, because that now there's a spectrum of school of thought. So some people say knee cave, that's completely fine, you're not going to injure yourself. If you're familiar with barbell medicine, they're a bunch of like doctors that lift, which is cool, but they're almost kind of like on the opposite side, where they say just because your knees cave in doesn't mean you're gonna get injured. Now I come from a physical therapy background, and I tend to believe in like kinesiopathologies, where basically if you move like shit, you're gonna feel like shit eventually, because it's really hard to measure the amount of adaptation that someone has. So people will squat like this all day and all their life and not have any knee pain. I just tend to be on the conservative side, because not only is it going to help with injury prevention, or at least try your very best, because I mean, I don't know how they're not going to see that. Look at the amount of force that you're going inside here, and the amount of force you're pushing down. So there's, of course, this nice little let's go Sakatoa. I'm not sure if you know math, but basically, long story short, if you are looking at the amount of force going in, let's clear all this, the amount of force going this way compared to going this way, you would basically find like the cosine, so the cosine of this angle, and that's the amount of force that you're getting right there. So let's go crazy with the math. Why not, right? So here is your angle here, so 31 degrees, 31 times cosine, and that is basically getting your amount of force going into this area, and not all going down into the floor, which is what we want. We want you to be efficient. So that was just my fancy ass way of saying that just because we will get you more efficient, you will lift more freaking weights, and that's what we want overall, right? So number one thing I would do is, for now, bring in your stance, because you're counting a lot on your secondary motions of your adductors. So your groin muscle is helping you extend your hip, and that's why it's pulling you inwards, and you're getting into a more stable position for you specifically. But I really want you to bring in your stance. Let's say about let's go with an inch on each side, maybe even inch and a half on each side. So that's the very first thing that we're going to do, is bring that in. So I'm going to throw all these cues at you now. All of these things that we're going to fix eventually. If I throw them all and try to make you fix all at one time, none of it's going to stick. That's my number one rule as a coach, is not to kind of bombard you with everything. I'm just bombarding you with everything right now because that's what you're paying for. You want to see that we have a plan. And so in my mind, we have short-term goals and then we have long-term goals. So so I think you went heavier after this, so bless your heart. We will bring the weight down now. That's going to be a little, shot to your ego, but it is necessary because that squat, oof. So, I'm sorry I'm making all these like, oof, because it's not efficient. If you want to talk about injury prevention, that's a whole new conversation, but you're definitely leaking out energy that we can be taking advantage of. So my number one accessory exercise for you is we're going to do maybe front squats with a hold at the bottom, because that's twofold. I'm doing the reason why I'm pausing at the bottom is so we can have isometric strength in this position. So I want your knees out, and then that's going to really have you in a deep position. So you're really calling upon your glute medius and your glutes, and just freaking having everything tight. Because once we have that, there's I guess studies that suggest that there's 15 degrees worth of carryover. So if we're strong in this position, then we're going to be strong in this position as well, 15 degrees. And for me, it's like I think of it as a spectrum. Most likely in the 15 degrees that we do have carryover, the end of the 15 degrees, you're going to have less of effect compared to the actual isometric strength in here. So that is, again, me saying fancy ass French words for let's get this positioning tight as fuck, so then we can really transfer that weight. And so not only that, but the reason why I pick front squats rather than a high bar or a low bar is because it's like an anti-cheat, because we're really trying to focus on quad strength. And if you were to kind of collapse like this or fold over, if you're in the front squat, it's going to be an anti-cheating movement. And since I'm not there with you and physically, because I'm always there with you spiritually. I mean, I am going to be your spirit animal that's going to be watching you from a distance. I'm not there physically, so I can't give you that immediate feedback. But if you are in a front squat position, trying to hold that for a good 3 seconds at the bottom, and then you try to drive your way up, if you lean over, you're going to dump the bar, and that's just perfect immediate feedback. So that's just the bar saying, hey, use your fucking quads. So that is your exercise there. Another thing that I noticed is that you tend to try to get a lot of stability through your hamstrings and your passive structures, the fancy words for not your muscles. So the reason why I can see that is your low back. If we look at your low back, let's do a little slow-mo action. Your low back is extended. You're kind of in this fancy word, anterior pelvic tilt. That's just kind of equivalent to a ghetto booty, where basically you're trying to find, you're getting kind of a stretch in your hamstrings, because the hamstrings are attached to your ischial tuberosity, fancy French ass words for your ass bone. And so when you extend your hips like that, you're basically putting the hamstring on kind of not slack but tension. So then that's going to give you that stability that you're lacking. So again, the first thing that we will work on is bringing your stance in, and then fix your bracing, because bracing, it seems like a lot of my clients, I feel like I always talk about this in Coach's Eye, is to basically, you guys tilt like crazy, but we need to stack your ribs. So stack your ribs, squeeze your glutes. So that's like a number one thing that I feel like is a game changer, is that when you're squeezing your glutes right before you're descending, that's going to pretty much put you in a posterior tilt a little bit, and also you're really stacking your ribs, basically not having, if I were there in person and I'm able to go underneath your ribs and grab it and do like a fatality, Mortal Kombat style, and pull them out, then we have a problem, because not only are you dead because I just fatality'd you, but you lose stability. You're not a nice stacked position, because if we were into a nice stacked position, then we can really count on and load the weight on the bar, because now your passive structures and your active structures aka your bones, ligaments, and also your muscles are really working all in one to make sure that you have a nice stable platform to really push off that weight. So again, squeeze your glutes and stack your ribs. Basically, if you were to breathe out really hard, your ribs are going to go down. Then you're going to keep that down rib position and then breathe in as much air as you can into your lungs, which people say breathe into your diaphragm. That's one thing as well. Breathe into your diaphragm. Of course, you're not breathing into your diaphragm, but you're breathing using your diaphragm muscles in order to get a nice stack position. So then we'll be nice and sturdy like a rod. So basically, it's like you don't want to play pool with a rope, right? The billiards with a rope, because you're not transferring that force. That's the same thing with you squatting with a loosey-goosey back, is that you're not able to produce that force better. So that's the number one things that I see there. Let's move on to your bench press, because your bench, let's go ahead and move on to the right side of the screen here. All right, so let's go, boom. Let's look at this side, and all right. So lift off, not too bad for a bro. So first thing I'm noticing is that you like a wide position. So that's what she said. But let's look at your bench press and try to make it more, efficient. So right here at the bottom of your bench, now there's two things that I always look at, is the amount of, let's go ahead and draw a little box here. So, boom. So right here is where the bench ends, correct? And then right here is the amount of elbow below the bench. So we're trying to reduce that amount, because what happens is that if you're in that position, you're basically hyperextending or extending your shoulder muscle into, it's basically putting a lot of stretch into your pecs plus your anterior deltoid. And so when you have that stretch, that length tension curve in your muscles, fancy French ass word for how you're able to, how you're stronger in a curl when you're in the mid range rather than if you're at the end range. Like, everyone always avoids the pull up at the bottom of a hang. It's because it's fucking hard. It's because it's fucking your muscles are stretched out and you're not able to produce enough force. So if we take that theory, or I don't know if it's a theory, but it's that's freaking science. If we take that science and we apply it to your bench press, you're basically, I would want you right here. Now that's hard because you're a wide bench press and you're not touching your chest. So if we were to go bring you there, there's two things that need to happen. So the amount of flare is dictated and required upon how much arch you have in your back. So first of all, we can do two things. We can either grip a little bit closer, or we can arch like a schoolgirl, Asian schoolgirl. Or actually a Russian schoolgirl, because those Russian they have some arch. They have 1 inch range of motion, but that's powerlifting, right? And that's what we're going to do. So either I want you to arch harder, basically push your hips closer to your shoulders, or set your shoulders and push your hips closer. You're basically getting all that tension and getting a little bit more of an arch. Or we can go ahead and maybe grip a little bit closer and touch slightly lower. So when we touch slightly lower, it's going to be a little bit more anterior delt rather than your pecs. And I think that's going to be a good trade-off. First of all, we'll probably do both, but we'll do it nice and slow, because, nice and slow is the way to go in order for things to stick. I was actually going to say a nice and slow, like Usher. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Usher's Nice and Slow song, but anyways, let's go ahead and talk about that. Is that so the accessory exercise, when I write your program, actually I've been writing your program, it took me about a week or so. I've been kind of like obsessing and looking at your videos. So I'm kind of creepy because I'm watching you and I constantly watch you, but I just love this shit, right? So I've been writing your program for a week, and the accessory exercise that we're going to look at is basically, I keep saying basically, I'm sorry, I'm basic. We're looking at a closed grip bench press. The reason why I do that is because we want to facilitate a closer grip, plus we want your triceps a little bit stronger because we're able to touch a little bit lower, and I think that is your sticking point is a little bit higher. Let's see. right around there. I mean, it's a little bit, you want to think of your sticking point as a little bit lower than where the bar really starts to pause, because that's where our momentum is lost, and we already have the momentum going up to begin with. That's why it's lower. So if we were to make your triceps stronger, we would kind of explode through your sticking point. And that's one thing that I like to cue a lot is CAT, compensatory acceleration training. So basically, again, basic, because we're basic bitches. We are pushing through as fast as we can. So once you're at here, if you can explode, you'll hear me say that a lot. The reason why is because there's twofold. First of all, you'll recruit more motor units, because it's like trying to let a person jump when they are trying to jump slow. It's impossible. You can't jump as high when you're jumping slow. The reason why you want to jump fast and jump as high as you can is because you're recruiting those motor units in order to really explode through. And then also the second part is that you will bust through your sticking point, because you'll have a little bit more momentum. Sorry, I'm a little tired. I just took a physical therapy test and it's kicking my butt. But that is the number one thing I would say, or I feel like I have numerous number one things, but those are the things that we're going to fix. And then let's look at your deadlift, because we are talking a little bit way too much. And so here's your deadlift. Of course, you got the bros in the back making sure that, if they didn't see it, it didn't happen, right? So it's 405 on the bar, and loving your socks, by the way. Let's go ahead and zoom in on the socks. Yes, America. So, anyways, sorry. Let's see. Your deadlift. Let's just look at it all the way through. Boom, 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 boom. Good grindage. Good job not trying to do a ramp up, but that's the thing. Your start position was a little bit shit to begin with. I'm sorry for being a little bit blunt with you, but if you start off with a shit start, your trajectory is going to lead into shit. So the start on the deadlift really dictates where you end up at the end of the pool. So right here, you can see that you're already locked out. So your knees are relatively locked out, and then your hips are it's relatively locked out as well, because you're curved back. And so now everything from here on up, you basically have to use your spinal erectors, which aren't as strong as your glutes or quads. So if we get your start position really strong to begin with, and use a little bit more quads, then we will really get your deadlift moving up like pretty damn good. First of all, you'll hear chest up a little bit. Now, chest up is good if you have strong quads. So my first instinct is to give you trap bar deadlifts, because then that kind of puts the center of mass a little bit down through the center of your mass, and so your positioning will be a little bit more higher. You'll be a little bit more use more quads compared to your hamstrings and low back. But you, according to your questionnaire, you don't have that access. So the next best thing is I'm going to give you a snatch grip deadlift as your kind of accessory, because what that's going to do is that's going to force you to get your hips down a little bit lower, and that's also going to lower the amount of weight that you have, because none of us can snatch grip deadlift our max conventional deadlift, because it's more range of motion, it's harder on the upper back, and especially for you, since you're a high bar squatter, I feel like snatch grip is going to be really perfect for high bar squatters, because your upper back tends to dictate, at least in my opinion, and also at least in Greg Knuckles' opinion. He wrote a great article about limiting factors in high bar. And anyways, if we get your back strong, then we're going to get your fucking deadlift and squat up, basically. And so your snatch grip deadlift, what's great about that is that you can reduce the amount of stimulus, or aka weight on the bar, in order to still get a stimulus. Because if we were to just get like trap bar, you can add a lot of weight. And so first we got to build that base. We want to make sure technique is on point, and then we'll go on from there. So another thing I notice is your arms. Your arms are, it's not straight down. That's what I would want. I want you to have your arms straight down. So I would tell you to bring in your stance your stance in maybe probably an inch and a half or so, and then also you're gonna have your arms drop straight down, because what's happening here is that you have like this 13-degree worth of angle. So if you think about it, you are increasing the amount of range of motion between your pull. So if we get you to pull this part where you have your grip a little bit lower, that means your hips are going to be higher. Your hips are going to be higher. You're basically going to move more weight. The more weight you move, the more PRs you get. The more PRs you get, the more money you make. The more money you make, the more you can pay me. I like that. So, anyways, I'm not going to raise the prices on you. Once you're a client, even if I get my doctoral physical therapy, you are locked into that price unless you leave me and then you decide to crawl back again and try to hire me again. The prices probably will be up higher because I continue to find myself really extremely busy, and the only way that I can pick up more clients is probably make them pay more, because then it's a little bit more worth it to me. But anyways, that's finances. I'm not going to talk about finances because no one wants to hear that. Let's talk about gains. So bring those things in, and yeah, I love this effort. That warms my heart. That is effort. So what was I talking about? Yes, arm. Sorry, I'm reviewing over again. So if we bring everything in, we get your quads a little bit stronger. That means we can get we can get your quads to contribute a little bit more, because right now your hamstrings and your back and your everything is contributing except for your quads as much. So if we get your quads to get a little stronger, then that is, in my opinion, your limiting factor in your squat and your deadlift. Who would have thunk it? This isn't fancy, brain surgery here. It's you get stronger quads, you get a stronger lower lift deadlift, or lower lifts, all in general. Let's see. So again, once we start working together, I'm gonna ask you to bring your stance in a bit, also your grip in a bit, and then I think you did really well. Look at the celebration. That celebration is on point. Nothing to change you there. Let's do a double. Let's see, like a single. You got that. 1 and then 2. 1, 2. I like it. Celebration is on point. So, overall, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna email you your whole program, and you just have to look at all the cues that I've given you, because everything that I put down is specific. There's no exercise that I've given you that I gave you or assigned you or prescribed you that I don't necessarily. Nothing is junk. They're all for a reason. So don't skip anything, and also again, try to be as detailed as you can with the notes, because I can change them depending on how you're doing. Usually for the first month or two, my clients do really well. So we progress pretty quick, and the more notes you have, and then I can really see how I can change it and adapt my program into your program. Or adapt my coaching and put more weights, because so again, the more detailed you are, the better I can be as a coach, because again, I'm not there with you physically, just there with you mentally, spiritually, and sometimes sexually. So again, hopefully that has been helpful. Again, I appreciate you choosing me as a coach. Again, there's a lot of things that I want to talk about in here that it's not. I'm not able to because of a limited time, because I don't even know how long this video is. I tend to babble on a little bit too much, but again, you are my client, so you have access to me pretty much 24/7. And so if you have any questions, I definitely am happy to answer. And let's get these fucking gains, right? So train hard, train smart, and celebrate your freaking deadlifts like a champ. Anyways, see you, man.